Judas Priest released an official video for their third single, Crown of Thorns, and it tells us so much about Judas Priest and their new album, Invincible Shield. Actually not, yet it shouldn't stop us from making absolutely useless observations. And by the way, in all seriousness, I finally heard Invincible Shield in its entirety, and now I completely understand why Judas Priest chose these 3 songs as singles, but about that later. Now on to the most useless analysis of Crown of Thorns video you will ever see. So, first of all, the video for Crown of Thorns is done in the vein of a well-known video from Judas Priest's previous studio album, Firepower. In fact, so much that I actually first thought that the setting Scott Travis performs his part in is identical to the one we saw on No Surrender. But it is not. Yet instead it tells us quite a bit about Scott himself. The scary poster behind Scott is actually the official concert poster from Judas Priest's May 14th, 2015 show in Austin, Texas. And it was designed by the illustrator Billy Perkins, who also happened to work with Judas Priest again 7 years later on this artwork. Now, nothing extraordinary actually happened at that show, so for all we know, the only reason it is there is because Scott simply loves the aesthetics of it. Yeah, either that or to underline that despite him being from Virginia, his studio is actually an ode to Texas. For another poster he has there is that for the video compilation DVD Electric Eye, which of course in addition to everything also features a Priest live concert recorded in 1986 in Dallas, Texas. By the way, Electric Eye was actually the first Priest product released after Rob's return to the band, and the last official release to use the classic Judas Priest logo. But most importantly, and not many for some reason remember that, but despite not actually offering any new material, Electric Eye was still certified platinum in the United States, which just once again shows how much all the fans were waiting for the band's reunion with the legendary vocalist back in 2003. And in addition to that, Scott Travis proved us that despite being 62 years old, Scott is still just a nerd, like all of us, who has a sword hanging on his wall, and I wouldn't be surprised if the shelf in the other room is full of action figures of his favorite characters.
It cannot be.
Come on, Scott, grow up. Another one on Scott's wall is the plaque to celebrate 50 years of metal and 50 million albums sold, presented to Judas Priest on November 4th, 2022 in Los Angeles, California. And it is exactly the same one as Ian Hill has on his wall. By the way, this picture was also used to promote the fact that after years of negotiations, last year Judas Priest and Reach Music were finally able to obtain the rights for their first 2 albums, Rock'n'Rolla and Sad Wings of Destiny. And let's not forget that their debut record is actually turning 50 this year on September 6th. And now I'm thinking about it, I might have actually heard a little something about a special surprise for all Judas Priest fans in 2024, which would be absolutely awesome, especially given the fact that in addition to the rights, Reach Music also obtained the master tapes, which will hopefully finally help Judas Priest bring justice to their very underrated debut album. By the way, guys, as you might have realized, there will be literally zero serious analysis of the actual Crown of Thorns video here. For the purpose of this goofy video is purely entertainment. But there are of course quite many serious videos about Judas Priest on our Defenders of the Faith series on the channel, including in-depth reviews of all 3 of the latest singles released by the band, which you should definitely check out right after this nerdy one. And also, if you still haven't done so yet, and especially if this is not the first video you're watching on this show, I would really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing to the Metal Pilgrim channel right now. Let's continue building this amazing heavy metal community together.
We're gonna have a good time. Always.
Now, in case you didn't know that, but in addition to being the only remaining founding member of Judas Priest, Ian Hill is actually also a walking Judas Priest encyclopedia.
Hey, this is song from Rock'n'Rolla. It's not. Is it from Sad Wings of Destiny? Oh, for fuck's sake. Ian, have we ever played this before live in like 20 years? 30 years? 40 years? About 40 years. That's a long time.
And now we also know that his home is also a Judas Priest museum, for among the other relics we can also see all the gold and platinum discs Judas Priest have gotten for Unleashed in the East, British Steel, Screaming for Vengeance and other albums hanging on the walls of his home studio. And in addition to everything, also Ian has a MIDI keyboard, which in fact is very suspicious given the band's long and complicated history with bass and MIDI keyboards. But in all seriousness, what is absolutely amazing about this video is to see the legendary Glenn Tipton being together with the band. A couple of weeks ago, Richie Faulkner in one of his interviews once again reiterated what we already knew before, that despite the fact that Glenn unfortunately is not able to fully perform with Judas Priest, he still remains an integral part of the Priest team, providing his ideas for the new album, yet sometimes channeling them through Richie instead. And so I don't know about you, but for me, every time I see Glenn on that screen brings up the warmest and the nicest feelings and a deep admiration for how much love and passion he has for music and for heavy metal. For even though he could have hung his guitar a long time ago, he still does all he physically can to bring the gift of the Judas Priest style heavy metal to all the band's loyal fans around the world.
I call out to the world tonight to raise your arms up high.
And there is actually another poster in this video which proves the same point. This time in Rob's studio, which can either be read as live music or live music. And this, it seems like exactly what this band has been doing throughout their entire life, and continue doing that right now, despite the whole fact that at this stage in their career they definitely do not owe anything to anyone. Yet the boys still continue to live heavy metal and to live music, still pounding out great records more than 50 years after they first started doing it. And talking about new music by Judas Priest, as I mentioned before, I was finally able to listen to Invincible Shield in its entirety, which kind of made me understand why the band has chosen these 3 songs as the first singles to the record. But no, they don't really represent Invincible Shield's sound. I don't think there is any song on this record that can actually do so. But they chose it rather because they evoke something in the hearts of different types of Judas Priest fans. As the thing we all love about this band is the fact that throughout their career, they never stopped changing and evolving, thus uniting so many different layers of metalheads. And I promise to share with you a lot of interesting information about Judas Priest's upcoming 19th studio record very soon. But for now, I'm set to stay firm and to not say anything about it at all. And not even my facial expression will give out whether I was disappointed by it or absolutely loved it. But anyways, what do you think about Crown of Thorns video? Let us know in the comments. We will prevail. Slava Ukraini!